In many ways, this event harks back to the moment of the financial crisis 10 years ago, when many researchers in political economy felt vindicated by the events, namely a big crash in the financial system that was very much in line with their way of seeing the world. And I guess it's fair to say that many political economy researchers were pretty smug about things because they felt they had it right, whereas the economists and the bankers had it wrong.
Political economy should be put on trial because it stubbornly refused to listen to feminists and anti-racist theorists and others who have argued that it's missing a lot of what matters most in terms of how the global economy functions and how it shapes people's lives.
The principal charge against economics was it's failed to see things that in one sense, with the benefit of hindsight, look predictable. But there are more and more of those now since the global financial crisis. The first would be the global financial crisis, but we can point to things like Brexit, the election of Donald Trump, the rise of populism more generally. All of these are things which in one sense you might think a good social science would have a theory of, would be able to predict and anticipate, and yet practically no one anticipated any of them.
In terms of the unforeseen developments, I think two stand really out. The one is the acuteness of the climate crisis. Obviously, the issue has been around for quite a while, but it's really become a dominating issue politically, but also for us as researchers. That isn't just another aspect of politics, but really seems to come to define the political battles that lie ahead of us in the 21st century. The other one is, I think, the unforeseen rise of what you could call a right-wing populist movement that has turned away from many trends that seem to define the later ends of the 20th century. So there is a return of nativism, turning away from economic globalization. And these are things that are very hard to square with some ways of thinking that I've seen in political economy before.
So essentially the idea for this conference came from two journals, the Review of International Political Economy and New Political Economy, both of which are partially edited here in Sheffield. And we started talking about the fact that there's a lot more work now in this area than there previously was. And these are the two dominant journals. Why wouldn't we think about hosting something together for addressing similar questions, bring a fantastic group of people together to discuss all of this, and take stock of the capacity of political economy, critical political economy, international political economy today to make sense of the world in which we live.
We have, I think, scholars at the top of their game in a range of different fields across, both around the UK, but also from different countries around the world, bringing their expertise mostly from politics departments, but we also have people with backgrounds in economics, in anthropology, in geography, in sociology, all speaking to the current questions and challenges of the day. We can be a little insular. We're interested in things like money and trade, and we maybe haven't been looking at the sort of broader cultural changes and questions, or the big changes like climate change and so on, that those things are often on the edge of the conversations and the edge of our vision, and we haven't seen them. And I think what we've really seen with this workshop is a kind of exchange from people working on these different things. And through that conversation, I think we're seeing people start to rethink what it means to talk about political economy. What is the economy? What is the politics? And in order to understand questions like race, questions like climate change, colonialism, gender, the changing nature of huge corporations, platform corporations and so on. These are all issues that we need to bring into the center of our conversation. I think we're starting to struggle with how we could start doing that.
In my view, some of the most interesting unforeseen developments relate to, for instance, the growth of forced labor in the global economy, the rise of anti-sexism and discussions about gender and sexism in society. I think that many of these things are things that political economy hasn't really grappled with, except for feminist political economy and certain sort of sub-disciplines within our field.
One of the main things that I've taken from the workshop already is the incredible value of listening to people who have perspectives other than your own. In a way that sounds like a pretty obvious kind of point, but it's still a really humbling experience when you talk to somebody who's looked at the world from a different position and tells you a story and a view that you have simply never entertained. And it's always a very amazing experience, and that's already something that's really sunk in so far.
Part of SPERI's remit is to take knowledge and the research that's produced here in Sheffield and by the scholars tagged to SPERI and get it outside of the ivory tower to turn it into concrete achievable policy proposals to work with organizations in different parts of society who would be able to actually take this forward and create real world change. As editors of 2 journals in our field, we actually have incredible power to shape how that field is reproduced. And so even just hearing from these amazing scholars who are here with us about what they think is being missed, part of what I'm interested in there is then, how we as a journal might be missing things and kind of reflecting on what we're publishing.
Our hope is this is the beginning of a conversation. People will be reworking their ideas. We are hoping we're going to have actually 2 special issues coming out of this, out of the 2 flagship journals in the field, but it's very much the beginning of a long-term conversation.